Greetings, maniacs, New Englanders, and everyone else that's interested tuning in. I hope this video finds you well. The day of recording is Halloween. Spooky. So it is October 31st, and elections or the referendum ballot is next week. And as anyone that's been paying attention knows, I am highly advocative? I don't know if that's a word. I advocate highly for voting. That being said, I think it should be informative and it should be something that you're educated about. So tonight I'm trying something different. I have learned some new skills, kind of. I saw some people on YouTube that I find fascinating and I just watch. So I saw what they did and I was interested to see if I could try and do something similar. So here we are tonight. This is, I'm trying to shrink my screen. Stop it. Come on. Okay, well, that'll work. So this is from CBS News 13. Your Voice, Your Future, Maine's Power Struggle. And it was published, let's see, 12 days ago. So, well before the elections, but I don't know that many people saw it. And I can see from the view count that 404 people have watched it on here. Not that many. And I don't know how many tuned in while it was happening. So what I would like to do is to watch the video and to add some commentary here or there where it's necessary, and just bring some more light to what's happening here in the state of Maine and how we can be involved and how our vote impacts the future of Maine's tomorrow. So on that note, let's get into it. Three minutes and 45 seconds before it gets into anything.
This election, voters will have a choice whether to spark a dramatic overhaul of the state's power system.
Right now, our utilities are governed by foreign corporations.
As extreme weather events knock out power more often, question 3 asks if you want to shock the system and take over Maine's power companies.
Nothing of this scale and this size has ever been attempted or proposed.
Opponents say it's too big with too many unknowns and a shocking price tag.
On day one of the Pine Tree Power Company, we'd all be on the hook for $13.5 billion in debt.
What is the real number?
That's a really great question.
It's an emotionally charged debate.
Pine Tree Power is about bringing our control of our electric grid back home.
Local control with a lot of uncertainty, and you have the power on Election Day. It's Your Voice, Your Future, Maine's Power Struggle, a live debate, and it starts right now.
Hello and welcome. I'm Greg Lagerkruse. So there's a special edition of CBS 13 News at 7. We're going to hear from those participants in just a moment. But first, I'm pleased to welcome in my colleague from the Bangor Daily News. The political editor has been joining me here for these debates for quite a while now. Michael Shepard, great to have you as always.
Hey, that's right, Greg. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mike. All right, let's go ahead and hear from the participants. We'll be hearing from them in just a moment. First of all, with their opening statements. We did have a random drawing to determine the order in which they would appear before you here today. And based on that, on our left tonight, we have Barbara Alexander. She is representing the vote no side. And on your right, we have Lucy Hochstartner. She is representing the vote yes side. So there you go. They're going to have an opening statement for us right now, roughly 1 minute. We think of it as sort of an elevator speech tonight to describe why or why not when it comes to question 3. So if you're set and ready to go, let's get to it. And based on our random drawing, Barbara Alexander from the no side, you have first words and you have 1 minute for your opening statement.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to appear. I am appearing here as a volunteer I have had over 30 years experience representing consumers in public utility regulation. I've worked in Maine and in over 30 states across our country. I'm here, and I have spoken out about this over a year ago, because the risks involved in this unprecedented attempt to eliminate our two utilities and form new bureaucrats and politicians to run the show is full of risks for consumers. The bill is 15 pages. That's what you're voting on. And in this bill, there is no enforceable promise to lower rates, improve our service quality, or even get cleaner power into our system. I welcome the debate. You're going to hear some big promises, and I will hopefully be able to help folks understand why this is such a dangerous gamble for our essential electricity service in our state.
All right,
Thank you.
Pause. Questions. Doesn't sound like a Mainer. She has represented other states. Maybe she is a Mainer and she didn't disclose that information. To me, as a Mainer, that's very important. I vote Mainers first. I don't want to vote out-of-staters. And I know she's not part of this. Well, I'm wondering what her foot in the game is. I mean, she's so concerned and she's represented all these states, and it's like, okay, why? Like, what do you get out of this? If you're not paid for them, are they... I don't know. Like, what is your foot in the game? And so that's my number one priority. And then the other fact, just where she's saying, okay, I'm going to need to do some editing on this video. I had to go back and rewatch what I had just watched because apparently her not being a Mainer, she's worked in 30 other states. To me, you can't work in that many states without traveling around heavily. And then at what point are you even aware of what's going on? Like, you're so single-minded at that point. Like, if you're a pilot photographer, when you travel around to 30 different states, you're going to have a single mindset. And obviously, in that situation, it's not a bad thing. But as a volunteer, and she has a single mindset. So what she mentioned, and I'm probably not going to edit, so bear with me as I figure out how to go through this whole process. But her big things were risk, and 15 pages is what you're voting for. So first, the risk. Is there risk? Yes. Yes. Is there risk in us staying with CMP, where we have experienced price hikes, we've experienced poor customer service, we've experienced more and more outages across the state for longer and longer, and then we are becoming more and more aware that our money, the profits of our money, are going to Qatar, Norway, and Canada. So those are large risks to me. So staying and doing nothing is a risk. So doing something, I'm okay with it also being a risk. It's something new. I know what is going to happen if we stay. I have a hope, but I do not know fully what will happen if we do something different. I do not like to be cornered. Mainers do not like to be cornered. We do not like to be given a single option, and that is it. So question 3 is very important for us Mainers, and I do hope that we become more and more aware of what is going on within our state. And questions 1 and 3 are a big deal. Although the whole referendum this year, it's pretty unprecedented. On to the 15 pages that she mentions. Yes, it's a 15-page bill that we're voting for, and we're trying to get something new into the books. Do you want to have a contract that's 2 paragraphs, that's 2 pages? You want to know pretty thoroughly what you're getting into. And if we're talking about 13, 15 pages, let's talk about the hundreds of bills that Governor Janet Mills has signed in. Over 450 before July, but now after July, we're talking hundreds more. Even trying to become aware of what those bills are, I've been looking. How am I supposed to know as a Maine constituent what the hell came into action that Janet Mills signed, but I'm not aware, and we can't even see the titles? Like, I want a thorough list, and I want it yesterday. As soon as the bills become enacted in law, it should be in writing. We, as Maine constituents, should be able to see it. So the 15 pages and the risks, water argument.
On the vote yes side, we'd like to hear from you as well. 1 minute, please.
Yeah, thank you so much to our hosts and our moderator and Ms. Alexander for having me here tonight. I'm really here because I've talked to thousands of Mainers over the course of this campaign, and no one trusts CMP and Versant to keep the lights on.
Accurate.
That's a huge problem. The solution is to vote yes on question 3 to create the Pine Tree Power Company, which would be a utility that's owned by Mainers so that it actually works for Mainers. Right now, the unfortunate truth is that our utilities are the worst in the nation. They sent $187 million in profit last year to foreign corporate owners.
Believe it.
And then they came back to send us 94,000 disconnection notices. They've misbilled us, and they've left us with the most frequent outages of any state in the country. Pine Tree Power would be a utility that we can trust, that would save us $9 billion over 30 years, reduce outages, and bring back our power from foreign corporations to make sure we have local control. That's what we need, and that's why I'm voting yes on question 3.
All right, thank you very much for your opening statements. Let's go ahead and...
Hers was a lot less accusatory. It was factually based, and I had a hard time finding anything that I disagreed with. Also, where I paused this, Alexandra, I believe, I'll correct myself once I hear the name again. She looks very pleasant and very understanding, compassionate. Barbara, the volunteer, looks like she has an agenda. Why does it look like she has an agenda?
Get right to the questions, too. Each participant's going to have roughly 1 minute to answer each question, followed by discussion, debate, and any follow-up questions from Mike and from myself as well. So again, if we're ready, let's get right to the questions as well. Again, based on our alternating order, we're going to begin with Barbara Alexander. Here's the question. The utilities say the cost to buy them out is going to be roughly $13.5 billion, while question 3, supporters say it's going to be closer to the utilities' book value right now. The value of these two properties at around $5.5 billion. Either way, that is a big number. Let's talk about that number and talk about why voters, what they should think about that number as they go to the voting booths. Let's begin with Barbara Alexander from Vote No.
Well, the important thing is we don't know, and that's, of course, the entire risk of this proposal. But more importantly, utilities, the rates for utilities are set on book value, which is the original cost of all their assets. If you're going to take their property by eminent domain, which is what is being proposed here, under the law and the Constitution, they have to be awarded fair market value. And so the dispute is about what the fair market value is. It's not book value. That has nothing to do with what they proposed to do in this bill.
All right, thank you very much. Lucy Hawkshaw, same question to you, please, 1 minute.
Lucy,
thank you
not
so
Alexander.
much for the opportunity to answer this question. I've been really disappointed to see that our utility companies have dumped $35 million into this campaign to spread misinformation that's really meant to scare voters out of taking our power back from foreign corporations. We know that our utilities have to list their value, report their value every single year. Just last year, they reported their value at less than half of what you've probably seen in the mail, on your television, maybe on Facebook or Instagram. This number was completely made up and meant to scare you. We know that Pine Tree Power is not actually about the initial cost, it's about the savings that economic analysis shows will save us $9 billion over 30 years.
I would just like to add that all responsible analysts of this proposal have made it clear that the first thing that will happen with the implementation of this law is that your rates will go up. You have to pay the bond, you have to pay the interest on the bond. If it was 5% of $9 billion, you're talking $450 million a year in interest alone, far in excess of these so-called profits.
Before you go any further, before we get into the details on the rates, I want to ask a quick follow-up though question about the number. She just said that she believes that number that we've been seeing in the ads, we've been seeing it on the mailings and all that, the $13.5 billion figure, she said she calls it essentially made up. Did you like to respond to that?
It's not my number. I didn't calculate that number. I'm not here to defend what CMP estimates the number will be. The point is, we don't know, and it's billions of dollars.
I just want to put you on the spot, Barb. You are here representing the no side, and you've been put here by the utilities. You got to defend that number. You got to
here by the utilities.
You've been put here by the political group that the political groups that are working for the utilities. So you've got to defend that number a little bit if you're going to be up here.
I don't feel that it's appropriate to defend a number that is an estimate by people who are running the business and who have calculated that number in good faith. I did not calculate that number, but that's not important. The important point is it's 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 billion dollars.
We're talking numbers here, and you're telling me that you aren't responsible, you aren't part of it, you're not going to defend it. Okay, Barbara, why are you here? You're a volunteer. Are you even from Maine? Who are you? What are you? What's your stake in the game? No. Lucy brought up a good point, and now you need to defend it. I mean, that money, is it a lie? Who says 13.5 billion, and why? Answer.
And we will not know the answer to that question until 5 to 10 years worth of litigation. And that is something our public advocate has estimated as to the length of time that we will be arguing about this issue in court before anything good will happen with it.
Right. I just wanted to be clear. What do you think about that number? You said it was put together in good faith. It's what your side is putting out there. You're saying right now that it doesn't matter all that much?
The numbers are in the range of $9 to $13 billion. We will not know the answer to that question. They're all estimates at this point. That's the problem. We don't know what it will cost us, and that's the risk.
And let me follow up with that to Lucy on the vote yes side. It is billions of dollars, no matter how you slice it. Again, we're hearing some disputes still again here tonight about exactly what that number might be. I think that's a precursor, perhaps a legal fight or a negotiating fight that's still ahead should this pass. But Lucy, how about the idea that it is still billions of dollars regardless? And how should voters think about that? It's a lot of money.
Well, thank you so much for that question. And first, I'd love to thank Ms. Alexander for coming with her expertise, but I'm really concerned that CMP and Versant aren't here themselves to really stand up for themselves. And I think it's because they're nervous to face their customers, given the kind of service they've been providing. Yeah. And what we know is that the economic analysis shows this saves Mainers money. Right now, we pay over $1 billion. That's right, $1 billion to CMP each year. We're paying a very high rent for the grid. Instead, we could be paying a low-cost mortgage. It's a better economic proposition.
Let's rewind that. Going from a high-expense rent to a low percentage mortgage. I don't think I quoted her exactly. That
money. Right now, we pay over $1 billion. That's right, $1 billion to CMP each year. We're paying a very high rent for the grid. Instead, we could be paying a low-cost mortgage. It's a better economic proposition.
Yes.
And I just want to follow up on this question, and Barbara mentioned it, the opinion from the public advocate that this could take up to 10 years to litigate. How would that limbo affect service during the interim? And I want to start with Barb on that one.
Well, Governor Janet Mills, former PUC commissioners, several legislators who do energy work at our legislature, the unions, and a number of the Chamber of Commerce have all asked people to vote no for exactly that reason, that it will delay decisions about improving our service quality. It will delay decisions about investments in the grid that are needed.
They fix the polls. I'm interrupting. And they fix the polls, and they fix them with shitty ass polls. Excuse my language, but we all know it. I mean, when storms come through every year, multiple times a year, we see people out there working, and you're like, "What? Did you just pull that pole from a ditch down the road?" No, can we get something better here? Can we think of improvements, progress, ways to not have outages in the future, to decrease percentages in what we pay? Why are we always constantly redoing telephone wires and telephone poles when we redo our roads every 3 years because of the frost heaves and snow plows and tourism? Let's just bury the poles, bury the wires, get rid of the poles when we fix our roads, and within 10 years, the entire state of Maine has buried wires. No, I mean it. For real.
And it will constantly roil the ability to continue our Maine-based regulation of these utilities. Here's a good example. We have a law that has been adopted very recently that requires improvement in service quality with stiff penalties attached to not achieving that. Instead, we're going to be spending 5 to 10 years arguing about what it takes to buy utilities by eminent domain. They are not for sale.
And Lucy, you're...
Okay, so we set the stage for the rest of the nation. As Maine goes, so goes the nation. We're going to be the guinea pigs. We always have been. The sun rises on Maine first. And with that comes some responsibility. Things happen here sometimes before they happen elsewhere. Having women senators, gay marriage, legalizing marijuana, Maine was always on the forefront. So why would it be any different now? I'm proud of that. And I want that to continue. Maine is progressive while being traditional. Maine is incredible. Maine is incredible, y'all.
Your chance to respond here. Again, there is, I think anyone would say, there's going to be a period of uncertainty. There's going to be the elections that would have to happen after this, should it pass. There has to be negotiations happening. Lawsuits have already been sort of promised, frankly. That 5 to 10 year timeline, it's a daunting number. For those who think that they want to vote for this, how do you think people should respond to that idea?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I really look to the Maine State Nurses Association here, who are concerned for their patients. And they are endorsing Pine Tree Power and a vote yes on question 3 because it is the only way to have safe power in the state of Maine that we all rely on. What we know is the PUC themselves commissioned a study that said this is entirely constitutional. This is not something we need to be worrying about. And all throughout this transition period, the regulation that Ms. Alexander has been talking about, that will all still be in place. CMP and Versant will be bound to provide us the service they're providing now, which isn't very good. That's why we need to move to Pine Tree Power. But you won't be seeing changes.
All right, we appreciate the discussion so far.
We'll be seeing some good changes, like progress towards not having power outages. Also, low-key, the Miss Alexander part, like not Barbara, not Barb, like Miss Alexander, like much older, like respectful, like your way of thinking is out the door. This is time for young people to be doing innovative things. And I understand where you're older, where the uncertainty can become very stressful. But to be honest, the uncertainty when you're starting your life, I think far outweighs that, because you're starting your life with so much uncertainty. Whereas people on the flip side are ending their life with uncertainty. Of course, uncertainty is not fun. And I used to be more of an advocate for the older uncertainty, but now that I'm thinking about it, the young ones are screwed. Like, what happens here and now impacts a far-reaching future. So it can't be a light decision. This can't just be something that we take lightly. This has to be serious.
We've already started to talk a little bit about our second topic area we want to jump into right now. That has to do with rates and how much people are going to pay when they send their checks each month for their power. We want to listen to our monitor just above me here. This is my I-Team's Marissa Bodner with the next question.
Last month, the I-Team took a deep dive into the details of Pine Tree Power in our 30-minute special, Maine's Power Struggle, which you can watch by scanning the QR code on your screen. Many Mainers ultimately want to know what this means for their wallet. A report by London Economics in 2020 found rates would go up in the short term, but down in the long run, saving millions of dollars. A conclusion Maine's public advocate agrees with, even though he isn't taking a side on this issue. One analysis of that report says there would be even more savings for customers and right away, while another says it would actually cost ratepayers billions. So we want to hear from you. Will Pine Tree Power save ratepayers money? Why or why not?
I'm sure that's the big question that most viewers want to know. What's this going to cost me? Based on our alternating format, we begin with Lucy Hochschartner from the side of yes. You have 1 minute, please.
Thank you so much for this question. I've been talking to Mainers who are struggling to keep up with CMP and Versant's rising costs that are going to pay shareholders and line their pockets. What we know is that Pine Tree Power, that $9 billion over 30 years, saves us money from day one, because rather than sending money overseas, we're going to be keeping it here in the state of Maine for our customers. This is going to be a utility. Pine Tree Power is going to be putting Mainers first rather than shareholders. The economic analysis that shows these savings was done by an independent Maine economist. The only analysis that does not show savings was paid for by our own utilities parent companies.
All right, thank you very much. Barbara Alexander, the same question to you about rates.
Thank you. The bill that is before us, this 15-page bill you're voting on, states that the minute the board is elected, it has the authority to hire its staff, its consultants, its attorneys, and at some point we're going to get an operating company selected by bid who will charge profits to operate this grid instead of our two utilities. So to say that we're that we're nonprofit is completely misrepresentation. The bill requires ratepayers to pay all of Pine Tree Power Board's costs to litigate this entire process for 5 to 10 years, if it takes that long. And it then requires ratepayers to pay for the bond, the $9 billion, the 10, 11, or 12 billion, the interest on the bond, and the new operating company, the identity of which we don't know, and the cost of which we don't know, and the profit they will charge to do that job, we do not know. In the short run, rates will increase. All during this litigation, rates will increase to pay for Pine Tree Power.
Mike Shepard.
Yeah. So there's a lot there. She offered some good information that should be verified. I don't trust CMP. I don't
go
trust
back to
their
just
shareholders. I don't trust They're shareholders, and they're foreign countries at that. Calgary, Canada, Qatar, Norway. Well, the bank Norges Bank, which it's the Norway governmental bank. They're making money from us here in the state. To me, that's a shackle, and I don't like shackles. So if it cost me $13 billion now to make sure that we don't have shackles for our grandchildren in the future, then I opt to pay it. And we don't know. And the unknown is where they're spending $35 million to try and persuade Mainers. CMP, Versant, Avangrid, and NMAX, and then a beer Drolla. $35 million. Trying to get us to vote in such a way that we're voting on fear, risk, unknown. That is not a good way to vote.
Drill down on the study that Marissa referenced, because this was done for the PUC by an independent group back in 2020. And Lucy, you said in your answer just now that this would save us money from day one. That study did not say that. It actually said rates would go up in the short term. So how do you respond to that part?
Yeah, that study had a fatal flaw that wasn't understanding, as the public advocate agrees, that we're going to be saving not just on distribution, but on transmission. So you've got the short power lines to your house and the longer power lines. That's really how we see those savings from day one. And that has been agreed on the public advocate's recent fact sheet. And so this is really something that is a win for Mainers. You're going to be taking back our utility from foreign corporations and making sure it works for you.
Thank you very much. Let me jump in actually as well, if I may, at this point. A lot of people want to talk at the same time.
Yeah.
I'll let you respond to that in a moment, Barbara. I do have a follow-up for you, though,
Yes.
Specifically. We talk about rates, you talk about how you think this is going to be more expensive, the litigation, et cetera. Again, the studies, though, have pointed to longer-term savings. I'd also like to point out that while this is a unique thing for Maine and frankly the nation, for an entire state to have a consumer-owned utility, as it's called, there are consumer-owned utilities, 9 in Maine right now, and with the exception of the one that's on an island, ratepayers are saving money with all of those. Why wouldn't people expect that they'd save money under consumer-owned model if they're already saving under these consumer-owned utilities we have in Maine right now?
The Pine Tree Power proposal is totally different than any consumer-owned utility in the state of Maine. It will operate with a profit-making operating company. That will probably be another utility that they will have to hire to do the job that's currently being done by Versant Power and CMP. There is no consumer-owned utility that is operating according to the methodology this bill sets forth. And I want to point out one very important thing. The bill doesn't promise any rate reductions. I do agree that the cost of capital that the new Pine Tree Board will be able to access may very well come in at a lower rate. That is not the same as promising that your actual bills will decrease. There are promises being made and investments that have to occur that are going to cause any rate to increase in our state for improving the grid, for improving our reliability. But the real frustration in Maine is not the CMP distribution part of your bill. Your bill is 28 cents a kilowatt hour. That's a big part of the cause of the frustration and the inability to afford the CMP bill.
You're saying the supplier side of the bill.
The entire bill is 28.7. The part that we are talking about buying under eminent domain is 6.6 cents, 20% of the entire bill. And there is nothing in this bill that guarantees any reduction in transmission rates. I have to say, that is misleading.
All right, Lucy, your chance, a lot to respond to. I'll give you a chance right now, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to Ms. Alexander for her expertise here. But what I know from talking to folks is that when you're paying your bill, even if there's different sides to your bill, it's all coming out of the same pocketbook. And savings are savings. And we know that Pine Tree Power is going to bring those $9 billion in savings over 30 years, even if it just is on that delivery side, that's savings and relief that Mainers need now as we're facing record disconnections. There are also supply costs, but distribution savings, the folks I talk to, delivery, can be half the bill. It can be more than half the bill. And we know consumer-owned utilities here in Maine are already doing a better job. Kennebunk, their delivery rate, 2 cents a kilowatt hour. CMP, over 10.
Barbara, do you want to respond to that?
The delivery rate for CMP is 6.6 cents, not 10. The smaller utilities in our state are very small. There are 12 employees at Kennebec Power and Light and 1,200 at CMP. The square mileage that they're responsible for making sure the power is on when the trees come down is tiny. It's 10,000 square miles for CMP. It's just a world of difference, and there's no proper comparison.
All right, let's continue this discussion, but I want to frame it in our next topic area. Let's move on to the third sort of topic area we want to talk about, and it's customer service. We want to sort of get into that a little more in depth. And let's be clear, one of the reasons we're even talking about this here tonight is because of customer service. You know, we go back to 2017, the October windstorm, CMP had billing problems. There's been a perception that the utilities have been out of touch with consumers here in Maine. Now, how should Mainers think about that perception as they go into vote? And we want to start based on our alternating format with Barbara Alexander from the no side.
I think they should demand better service, and they should demand that the bills are accurate. And that's why our Public Utilities Commission has undertaken and demands reforms. And they have attached significant penalties to CMP's shareholders for their failure to handle that billing system properly. And one of the things I want to point out is that there will be no shareholders for Pine Tree Power, and there will be no fines, and there will be no imprudent investments disallowed, because there is no one to blame but the board and the rates that will be approved for this utility. No shareholders, nobody to punish if something goes wrong. So there is a balance with our current system. Yes, there's some profits involved, but the profit is regulated right here in Maine by our PUC.
But it still goes out of the state of Maine. If they regulated it and it came into the state of Maine, it would be entirely different.
This is a reality that people are living with every day. We have the worst utility companies in the nation, and that needs to change. The way that we change that is voting yes on question 3, because Pine Tree Power is going to put Mainers first, because we'll be owning the utilities. CMP and Versant, their obligation is and always will be to make a profit for their shareholders. I'm really disappointed that CMP and Versant didn't show up here tonight.
I totally agree.
I would like to know their plan for fixing these problems. Unfortunately, the only plan I've seen is that they've been dumping $35 million into this election and spending on politics, rather than spending on improving our service, which I think is what most Mainers really need to see to make sure that we have a utility that we can count on and that we can trust, and that is Pine Tree Power.
And as a follow-up to that, Lucy, and I'll get to Barbara Alexander in a moment on the no side, one of the promises here is you have as implied in some of your campaigning about that there will be improvements in customer service, that you'll be more responsive to Mainers because you are quote-unquote consumer-owned, although that's been disputed as well. Is that part of your promise? How can you make that promise? And what is it you're specifically saying you can deliver?
Yeah, so Pine Tree Power has far more avenues for accountability. I think a huge issue with CMP and Versant is that their job is not to provide cheaper, affordable power. Their job is to make money for foreign corporations, since they've been bought out by these foreign corporations.
Literally.
Those board meetings are private. We don't know what's happening. With Pine Tree Power, you'll both be able to have accountability from the board members themselves in elections. You'll be able to go to those board meetings and know what's happening. And the actual incentive structure is different. Their job will be to work for Mainers. And that's how we're going to be able to see better customer service. That's what you see with consumer-owned utilities across the nation. States like Nebraska that have entirely consumer-owned power, some of the most reliable and cheapest electricity in the nation. Total contrast from Maine, where we actually have the worst customer satisfaction of any utilities in the country.
And Barbara Alexander, your chance to respond.
The board for Pine Tree Power consists...
Which also makes sense because Mainers are willing to put up with a lot. Like, it takes a lot to get us to a point where we're like, Sign me up. I'm going to the streets. I'm a protest. Unless you're me and you're in your 20s. However, most Mainers, it takes a lot for us to get to that point, to complain, to go out and raise a stink. Like, we're raised not to raise a stink. And yet here we are being forced to against our wills, but ultimately we have to make a choice because Miss Alexander is on her way. She's a grandmother, or maybe she's not, but then you have Lucy, who is a mother or a future mother, and a very young one at that. So obviously the investment on Lucy's part is much greater than Miss Alexander's, who seems like she's from out of state and isn't very polite. She seems very rude, to be honest. Just a personal observation. But I'm going to keep the video going, but to me, this speaks volumes. This is the future of our government. It's going to be young people fighting against people that have been doing this for a very long and established amount of time. So we are going to have to make decisions. Are we, as younger Mainers, going to keep tradition in mind while moving towards progress, even if that means taking on some risk? 15 pages is a pretty easy contract to read when some contracts can be hundreds of pages. And again, Governor Janet Mills signed in hundreds of bills into law in a very short amount of time. So I wonder how much she truly paid attention and investigated and researched into what she was signing into law or denying law. So to me, this whole live debate, it's great. I'm glad for it. I want more of these. But Lucy is just so far saying everything that I would want to hear. And I don't think she's saying it in a way that it's deceptive. I think no, this is the way it really could be. And you want it to be this way because it's good. And because it's good, you want it this way. So yes, this isn't being deceptive. Miss Alexander seems a little deceptive. I don't trust her as much, just off the cuff, personally.
Of elected politicians who have 6-year terms. They will be responsive, as all politicians are, to the promises they make on the campaign trail and the people who funded their election costs. If you're upset with the pamphlets coming into your mailbox every day on this issue, be prepared to double it when we have to elect another set of politicians to operate the Pine Tree Power thing.
We need to get to closing statements, but I do want to give 30 seconds to Lucy to respond to the idea that this will be, politicians running for these offices.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity to respond here. I've just been so disappointed to see a utility and their parent companies that have dumped $35 million into an election talking about money in politics. Every Mainer that I talk to
$35 million.
knows
what
that
could you have done
really
with that?
Is happening is that CMP and Versant are the biggest political actors in the state of Maine.
Barrier wires.
They have spent millions in elections. They have put people in politics. They have hired politicians. They have spent thousands to lobby. If that's not political, I don't know what is.
I'm going to have to jump in. You each have about 30 seconds now, because that's all we have left for a closing statement. You're to the no side first, please.
I would like to emphasize that Maine state government operates the policies that govern our utilities.
And
our
legislature,
consisting of elected politicians, set all the policies that the commission must then implement. Our commission regulates every cent of the bill that you are being given by CMP and Versant Power. The distribution part of this debate is fully regulated it is not a system that needs the dramatic and risky change that is being proposed with this legislation.
What's dramatic is spending
Thank you very much,
$35
Barbara
million
Alexander. From their
in
side, Lucy
opposition to
Hochstarter,
an
from the yes
underdog.
side.
Yeah, thank you so much to everyone for having us here tonight. You know, I'm really disappointed that CMP and Versant couldn't be bothered to show up tonight. I came here tonight because the thousands of Mainers I've talked to couldn't come here themselves, but I'd like to give them the last word. So I'm gonna share a story from Laura in Lincoln, Maine. I'm 75 years old. I for sure understand big power bills. As of now, I owe Versant $1,300, which will never get paid down, being on Social Security. Rent's now $1,000 a month, plus paying for my own heat.
In
As soon as I
Lincoln?
turn the heat on, the blower, of course, will add to the bill going up. I agree. Something must be done.
Something must be done.
Thank you very much to both of our participants. It goes quickly, as we always know. Thank you to Michael Shepard from the BDN. And thank
Well, I'm
you, our
gonna give
viewers,
a
for
thumbs
tuning
up,
in
and I'll be
tonight.
number
If for
11.
some reason you want to watch again, or maybe you missed the beginning of this debate, you can scan the QR code
For
right there on your
some reason
screen.
you
It'll
wanna
take you
watch
right to
again.
this debate. You can watch it right now
What a good way to
through
say
Election
that.
Day. And of course, stay with the BDN and CBS 13, now through Election BDN. And thank you, our
And as soon as I turn the heat on, the blower, of course, will add to the bill going up. I agree. Something must be done.
I went too far.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of our participants. It goes quickly, as we always know. Thank you to Michael Shepard from the BDN. And thank you, our viewers, for tuning in tonight. If for some reason you want to watch
If
again,
for
or maybe you
some
missed the
reason
beginning
you
of this
wanna
debate, you
watch
can scan
again.
the QR code right there on your screen. It'll take you
Not
right to this
super
debate. You
great.
can watch it right now through Election Day. And of course, stay with the BDN and CBS 13, now through Election Day as well. That's it for us here tonight on the Question 3 debate. Have a great evening.
All right, so I'm glad to have been able to share that. Dang it. All right, I'm still learning what I'm doing here, so I don't know that I can change what screen I'm on. So I'm just gonna finish up here. I wanted to bring more attention to this because, like I said, only 404 people have seen this. On YouTube, at least. I'm sure there was maybe 1,000 or 3,000 or so people watching live. But I wanted to bring more attention to this because it is very important. And so consider everything that's being said, weigh it in your own heart, see how it settles with you. We have 1 week to decide how things are going to go. I'm going to keep bringing videos up until Election Day on the Maine ballot, and then afterwards I will evaluate it and hopefully not cry on screen. So, I guess at this point, because I don't know how to switch things around, I'm going to call it here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. If you haven't already, I hope I earned your subscription, so go ahead and hit that down below. Have a good evening.